Hey everyone, Caleb with Antique Book Collective, and today I'm going to answer a question for you guys that just came up for me and that I've heard from you guys a couple of times. I've only answered it with words before, but this time I'm answering it with a video, and the reason why I'm doing it finally with a video is because I finally had to do it. So that question is, without further ado, can you make labels for eBay, your eBay shipments, all that sort of stuff, if you don't have a printer? And the answer is yes, you can. But there are some caveats for that. So the biggest caveat is, as far as I know, I don't know if FedEx and UPS allow this, but I do know that USPS, the United States Postal Service, the mailman, I do know that they do offer this. So the way that you do that is you just purchase a QR code to do this. And with all that said, a little bit of story time. So you guys know the whole thing, whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and how that always tends to happen, all like it just stacks on top of each other. Like sometimes when it rains, it pours, and it rains and pours like blessings. Other times it's just bad things. So for me, I just had a giant snowstorm. The roads are covered in ice, and I had a bunch of shipments to do, and I was a little bit nervous about that. So I was thinking about, I got a lot of ice to go through, and then while I was making all the shipments that I was doing today, I was halfway through printing them all, and the printer that I used up and died, and it is dead now. And I'm very sad because this printer's been with me the entire time, so I actually just had to go buy a new printer. But in between that time, I actually had to still ship out a couple more shipments. So I already had purchased the actual labels for those things, and because I had already done the labels, I was trying to print them and they wouldn't print because, again, the printer was dead. So I canceled those labels and I had to repurchase new labels, but instead of printing an actual label, I printed the QR code. So with that said, I'm going to do a video walkthrough with you guys, just a really quick thing, just to quick and dirty thing, just to show you guys how to do that. It's really straightforward, really simple. I'm going to be blurring out a lot of things on the screen share because I want to maintain my privacy and my buyer's privacy, but you're still going to get everything you really need. So with that said and done, onto the screen share. Alright guys, so you can see here my different shipments. Again, I'm going to be censoring out a whole lot of things just to protect my privacy and my buyer's privacy. Just doing that just because I don't want to have a whole bunch of people from YouTube going onto my business, because I do want to keep these things separate. Just that's a personal thing, just to try to help with all the internet trolls out there. I know some of you guys are good guys and good people, and you guys want to buy some of these books. You can. I mean, you're fully available to do that, but I do want to have a little bit of an air gap personally, so that's why I don't share all the info that I have. But with that said, as you guys can see right here, all you have to do is click this View Orders Detail, the little drop-down menu right next to that. Again, since I already printed off a label prior to this, it's not quite the same for what you guys would be seeing if you're just doing the QR code, but a lot of you guys will be like me. Eventually, your printer is going to break on you, and you're going to have to do the QR code thing, and it's really stinking simple. So with that said, the drop-down menu, the first option, it's not always the first option. eBay fiddles with stuff all the time. In fact, what you're seeing right here, it might not look exactly like this for your computer. In fact, for me, I have two computers that I do my business on. One computer, it's one way. The other computer, it's the other way. So it's a little bit of a headache. And then if you do it on your phone, it's another way entirely. It's just a little bit annoying. But at the end of the day, the drop-down menu should still be here. And usually the thing that you want is at the top, but sometimes it's mixed in there as well. But what you want is something that says print another label if you have to make a new one and you canceled the old one, or just need to make another one because you have multiple boxes to a shipment, which happens if you guys are like me and you sell sets of books. So on my left here, you have a couple sets of books, and these sets of books, a few of them actually take multiple boxes to ship out just because the sets are so large. So with that said, that would be print another label or purchase another label. Otherwise, it's just purchase shipping label. Pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to click that here. It'll load on up to the page that you guys are probably familiar with if you've done this before, or if you haven't done it before, you're unfamiliar with it. But end of the day, you put in the weight, you put in the dimensions of your box. They say that your boxes, when you're doing the dimensions, it should be like the longest one is the first one, the second longest one is the second one, and the third, actually the shortest one, is the last one. You can sort of mix that up a little bit. I haven't been screamed at just yet, but they say best practices, you're supposed to do it the other way. But end of the day, that shouldn't matter too much. But you put in your dimensions. Personally, I round up my measurements because I've had it a few times where I've put in the stuff where it just rounds up on its own. So I'm like, okay, I'm just rounding up. Another thing, if you guys are shipping, most of the time they round up to the nearest pound. for your weight, so I just automatically round my stuff up as well. I just use my little scale right here. Guys, Accutech scale, I've been using this thing for years. It is absolutely great. You can use affiliate links down below. I don't know exactly if I linked to this one, but it's a good scale. If you guys don't have a scale just yet, it was a good price. There's lots of scales out there. Some of them are cheap and useless. Others are mid-road and really good. That one is one of the more low-end, but still very good ones. So that's my little recommendation there. Not promoted, not sponsored, all that sort of stuff. Just the scale that I use. But with that said, be sure to round up most of the time. Sometimes you do get to pay for like just the ounces, but from my experience, it's mostly just by the pound. So with that said, on to the next little part. So USPS Media Mail is what I ship with, because for me, I ship books, and books with Media Mail, it's a very, very good discount on your shipping. Like, so nice. Of course, you also can do flat rate. For me, I actually have found that flat rate is sometimes, or even oftentimes, more expensive than doing media mail. That's how nice of a deal media mail oftentimes is. So as you guys can see, you have the dimensions, you have the weight, all that sort of stuff. Long story on that stuff. I'll share with that with you guys, in another video or shortly later on in this. But as you guys can see, you have this sort of stuff. You probably have seen this before. You can hit just purchase shipping label, and that'll give you the shipping label. But if you guys want the QR code, there's a fun little thing down here at the bottom. So as you guys can see, for me, it's already selected because that's what I did for my last 2 labels, since my printer died right as I had just 2 labels left. I mean, I was that close, and then it died. But generally for me, I do the printable label, and that is right next to the QR code one. And your last selection usually is going to be the thing that it always defaults to once that is done. So again, since we're doing this for this video, I'm going to hit the QR code thing, and then you can, of course, choose where you want it to charge you. So for me, I'm not actually going to purchase another shipping label for this order, because that's probably just going to confuse the buyer who already has a second tracking number to deal with, because I already reached out to them and was like, hey, so my printer died, so I had to do this other way. So I already told them that. But at the end of the day, guys, you can just hit purchase shipping label once you get all your information in, and you will get a little pop-up screen or something along those lines, and it'll say download QR code. You download your QR code. You can do it onto your computer or onto your phone. So if you're buying from your phone, off your phone, it's pretty straightforward. However, if you're doing it on your desktop, the best thing that I found to do was to download it onto your computer, and then hop onto Google Photos or Dropbox, one of those sorts of things, and then have it so you have those photos onto your Dropbox or Google Docs or whatever it is, and then you access that onto your phone. Be sure you have those pulled up before you go to the post office, because of what I'm going to be going through in a little bit. But end of the day, you guys can figure out however you want to get your photos from your computer onto your phone. You can also just do that by plugging the 2 in and transferring the photos over. There's a lot of ways to do that. Not getting into that in this video, because we have better things to do with our lives. But I'm just going to go on and tell you guys. So, a little bit of a news flash. We are getting out of the screen share really quick. So, boom, we're back. So, guys, once you get your label purchased and you get it onto your phone, however you do that, of course, you can print it off and take it to the post office. But if you're printing it off, that probably means you can print the actual label itself, which is going to be easier. But let's say you get it onto your phone. When you get to the post office, you have to make sure that you have it pulled up on your phone and you have the boxes with you. When you have your boxes, guys, for me, when I did it, I wish I had a box right next to me. I don't have any boxes right next to me, but I made sure that I wrote on the boxes who the customer was, what the item was, and I also had the weight of the item, because those are all just different ways that I could differentiate the things. And I thought that was going to be good enough. And then the lady at the post office, when I got there, she was like, so do you know whose QR code each one's for? And when they give you the QR code, it doesn't say any specific information. Like, it has the code, it might say eBay, yada yada yada, and then it'll have like a little code thing at the bottom, but it doesn't say explicitly who the QR code is for, which I felt a little bit dumb on. So when you guys do this, be sure you know who each one is for, like who each QR code is for. So if one's for John Wesley in Kansas City and the other one's for Paul McDermott in Miami, make sure you have like those labeled for your QR codes. For me, I did not. However, when I had the thing up for the lady, I'm like, Oh, Pooh. I'm sorry, I don't actually know which one that is. One's for John and one's for Melinda, you know, like those aren't the actual names. Again, I'm trying to protect my customers, but, and I told her one's going to this place, one's going to the other place, one's this way, and she was luckily able to figure those out pretty easy cheesy. And again, I wrote it on the box itself in pencil. I could have erased it after I got it, but I didn't need to do it in the end because the sticker they provided me went over it. So with that said, though, she was able to just print those things off for me with the QR codes. It was no cost to me, which is very nice, besides, of course, the cost that I incurred by purchasing the shipping label. If you guys do other ways of getting your stuff printed off, like going to the library or going to Office Depot or something like that, they will charge you per copy most of the time. I don't know for sure if they'll print you free labels if you go to Office Depot with that sort of thing. So personally, I would go to the United States Postal Service post office to do this, but they might very well have it so you can get it for free elsewhere. I personally wouldn't bet on that, and at the end of the day, most cities have a post office. That's sort of like one of the rules. It's one of the first things that goes in when they make a city. In fact, there's a lot of fun stories about for Oregon, you guys know, like the Oregon Trail, there's a lot of fun little stories about the weird post office things that happened because, oh yeah, the first guy that moved to this place was the post office, and then everyone else came. It's like weird things that you never would think about, but that's a thing. But with that said, there's a post office close enough for you guys, and at the end of the day, it really isn't too much of a struggle to potentially wait in line and make sure that everything's done right and be able to ask the postal service people if it is actually correct, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have a package get lost or mislabeled or delivered to the wrong person, because that's just a headache. So with that said, back to the entire thing about all the labels, QR code things, don't mess things up. Guys, I hate to say it, but you probably need to buy a printer for your business if you're doing it for any extended period of time. So for me, guys, I just dropped off 10 different shipments of books, and those 10 shipments of books are enough to buy me a printer. So like basically this this latest delivery that I did is sort of a wash because the expense that I incurred by having to buy a new printer sort of counteracts the profits. I think I had like $200 in profits, so buying a printer was $130. Pro tip, Office Depot has a pretty good deal right now on printers, like very good. But if you guys don't, I think I do link to some printers that I would recommend down in the description below in my affiliate link area. If you guys want to support me, you can do that. But honestly, it sometimes is cheaper to buy these things in person. Sometimes you can even buy them on eBay used for a pretty good price. It basically depends. There's obviously risks if you buy something used or returned or on too much of sale, that sort of stuff. But it's up to you guys, whatever you want to do. For me, I literally just picked up this printer as I was out getting all my stuff delivered and all that sort of stuff. And funnily enough, I don't know, whatever that word is, it was amusing to me. One of the things that I had to do, so I went to the post office, dropped off the things, did the whole QR code thing. Then I went to Office Depot to get my printer. And then, because, as I mentioned earlier, guys, I have a ton of ice at my house, I was like, you know what? I don't feel, and I live on top of a hill, guys, so it's even worse. I was like, I don't really feel like driving home just yet. I'm going to give the sun like an extra hour to melt up the snow a little bit, because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it back up the hill when I was leaving. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait it. And guys, I live on I want to say 10% grade hill, so I mean, it's steep. Not the steepest I've seen. Fun story here. So when I was doing some prospecting for my gold mine, I actually drove into a town. In that town, going into the town on the highway, they had a 16% grade hill. I've never seen that before. That was the steepest hill I've ever driven on, so I can't complain about 10% anymore, but we live about 10%, and that is pretty steep, and it's also shaded for the first few hours of the day, so I mean, it was a sheet of ice the entire way, so I was able to make it down fine enough. My truck's a four-wheel drive truck, so I was fine, but like getting up, I was like, maybe not, so I was like, I'm gonna burn some time while I'm here, so I made sure to burn the time, and luckily when I came back, it was thawed enough that I could make it up safely, but that was just a fun little story. But with that said, though, guys, I was able to buy a printer just with a few sales. If you guys run your business like I run my business, you have some really, really, really good multiples on the items that you sell. So if you guys haven't been following me, I buy my books for about $1 each, and my average sales price right now is $35 per item. However, in the past, before the recession started setting in, my average sales price was actually $70 per item that I would sell. And the only reason why it's changed is I did change my entire business model for the recession, so I would have a higher volume of sales of lower end items. Ergo, why it dropped from $70 to $35. I effectively cut my average sales price in half. And again, that was just to make sure that my revenues and profits were not harmed. In fact, because I made that pivot, I've actually seen an increase in overall profits. Now, I am spending more in supplies. I'm spending more in boxes and packing. I'm spending more time listing books because, again, I'm listing a whole lot more things to try to counteract the loss of my higher end market. But I am by no means missing out on any money because I made that pivot. So with that said, back to what I was saying earlier, guys, if you run your business like me and if you'd like to learn more about that, be sure to subscribe because I do walk you guys through my entire business model. It's just something that I personally like to do. I think everyone should own their own business and run their own business. Yes, I understand that not everyone can. Not everyone is the best at it. It sort of is a special kind of person that can run their own business. But for some of us, we don't need to run our side business as a side business. We can run it as a passion project, a hobby, that sort of thing, and we could still get along pretty fine. Yeah, you'll have to spend a little bit more getting your tax stuff done, your this done, because you'll probably have to outsource those things because you need like the burning, I want my own business passion if you guys really want to do it all the way and make the most money you can. But you can really get along fine just running it as a passion project. Like for me, I've actually thought about my book business. As you guys can see here, here's just a few of the books, a very, very few of the books. I mean, I have some more over there. I have a ton over there. I've been running this business for a long time, and it's one of the things that I've thought about for a long time. I'm like, when I get old, when I retire, if I ever decide to retire, I'm personally a workaholic, and the thought of retiring is just venom in my blood. But for me, I've thought, I'm like, if I was to retire, I would totally keep this business going because it's such a passion project for me, and it's really fun to go out and buy a book and be like, wow, I paid $1 for it and this book's worth $5,000. It's like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is addictive. It's really fun. So for me, I personally can see myself doing this for the long term, and I've actually tested it on the super low end of effort and the super high end of effort. I've had times where I only put in a couple hours a week. I've had times where I put in a couple hours a month. I've had times where I put in 16-hour days for months and months on end, which is what I'm currently going through just because all the other things that I'm doing right now. But with that said, back to the QR code thing, all that sort of stuff. So as I was saying, even with my lowered profit margin per item, about $35 an item now, even with that, I was still able to purchase a printer just with my 10 shipments actually that I did today. So 10 shipments today actually ended up being a little bit lower than my $35 per item, because if you guys could do the math really quick, I had about, I want to say $220. And then after I did all the shipping labels, it ended up being $180. So divide that by 10, that was $18 per item. So it wasn't my best day for my average sales price. It brought my average sales price down even further. But because I have a volume of sales, it still is at about $35. But with that said, even with all the money that I spent on those books, on the boxes, on the shipping labels, all that sort of stuff, I still had about $180 left, as I was saying. And that $180, guys, it bought me a printer, easy, stinking cheesy. And I will be moving the eBay money over and doing that stuff to get it back in my bank account because I drained my bank account doing that. I promise I'm not broke. I just don't have money in the bank because I don't trust the banks right now. Again, with the recession coming, I personally emptied my bank account out basically entirely. Not investment advice, not advice whatsoever, but I just did that because personally I adhere to the old wisdom of things, and one of the old wisdom things that I've heard over the years is I'm paraphrasing pretty hard, but one of the things that I personally adhere to is don't expose yourself to undue risk. And for me, I do know that there are plenty of times in previous recessions that banks do close. Banks do go on those banking holidays and then close. You do end up losing your money. I know of plenty of people that had to wait years and years and years for the FDIC insurance on their money to come back to them. I've heard of some people that got it much sooner, but I know of plenty of people that had to wait. In fact, I heard one story about someone who didn't get resolution for their banking stuff from the 70s banking crisis. They didn't get resolution until I want to say the 90s. So that is something that I personally heard, I took to heart, and it's something that convinced me that I was like, okay, let's not overdo it and risk it all in that. But with that said, that's not really the point of this video. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you guys have already left because you got the main sustenance of it. But again, guys, I bought myself a new printer. I was able to pay for that just from one day's sales. And if you guys do a business like mine and you do it on the scale of what I'm doing, or even on a smaller scale, you can definitely buy a printer pretty quick. It's not the end of the world. And just thinking about it though, you're not just paying for your printer once, because you will pay, like, let's just say easy math, you'll pay $200 for the printer, but then you have to pay $100 for ink every X many months, and then you'll have to pay $100 in paper every year or couple of years. It's not a huge amount of money, and like it'll definitely get spaced out over the years, but there are added costs of running your business that you do have to keep in mind when you are doing this sort of stuff. So with that said, be sure to save your receipts on all things, because tax season's a coming. But with all that said and done though, guys, I hope this video was able to help you. If you would like to learn more about how I run my business, you can subscribe. It should be right up there. And if you guys would like to watch another video of mine, you can watch one right there. And with that said and done though, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.